And now, without further ado, let's get right to the interview.
So this is a quote from, again, the lead detective, Jim Lavell, and he said in 1992, quote, "The one thing that we didn't do that we should have done, and this is an afterthought, what I didn't, what I should have done was canvass those door to door like I have done in other murder cases and get the evidence." Wow, this is like the death of a fallen officer. And he's like, we really should have knocked on doors and gotten all the witnesses and tracked down more leads. I mean, this is just an astonishing
Yeah,
quote. What
yeah,
do you
yeah.
think?
Well, the FBI did do that later toward
Yeah,
right toward the end of December. They began to go door to door. Do you think that might have been in a sort of a reaction to what Laval was already saying that, hey, we didn't do that contemporaneously, that still someone needs to do it? Yeah.
that's a good question. I've never been asked that before. But I wanted to talk about day one descriptions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think a lot of people forget about this. But so I went out and I searched. I said, okay, what was that day on November 22nd, the day that it happened? What did people say that day about the killer, how he looked and everything? So day one descriptions. At 1:22 p.m., Officer Walker announced over the radio that the Tippit suspect was a white male about 30, 5'8", black hair, slender, wearing a white jacket, white shirt, and dark slacks. But Oswald was 24, brown hair, didn't own a white jacket, and wore a brown shirt. You see where this is going, right? At 1:37 p.m., Officer Summers reported over the radio that an eyeball witness told him the killer was, quote, a white male, 27, 5'11", 165 pounds, black wavy hair, fair complected, wearing a light gray Eisenhower type jacket, dark trousers, and a white shirt. But Oswald was 24, 5'9", 135 pounds, brown hair, and wearing a brown shirt. Sergeant Hill, he testified, quote, "The first man that came up to me said, quote, the man that shot him was a white male about 5'10", weighing 160 to 170 pounds, had on a jacket and a pair of trousers, brown bushy hair. But Oswald was 135 pounds and had receding hair. Officer Poe and Jez, their report from that day says that the killer had, quote, bushy hair wearing a brown jacket, but Oswald had receding hair and didn't own a brown jacket. And witness Helen Markham, she told the FBI that day that, again, that the killer was, quote, 18, black hair, red complexion. Now, that couldn't have been Oswald, who was, again, was 24, brown hair, and pale complexion. So that's what was described that day.
One of the things that stands out to me, Matt, I mean, there's a lot to process there because there's so many variables from each of the
Yeah.
individuals, but the black hair seems to be very consistent versus brown
Yes,
hair.
yes, yes, that's the thing. And I was, yes, and that's something that Larry Harris brought up. He actually said, uh, quote, I don't think anyone would mistake Oswald's short brown hair for black hair or black wavy hair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm less inclined to be concerned about the weight differentials because to at least for me, I think most people can't get the weights right. So I maybe to everybody 135 looks like 165, but but it is consistent and it does consistently describe somebody who's perhaps larger than
Yeah,
who Oswald was. And I do think that that does have veracity regardless because it is so consistent. There are so many people suggesting that the weight was in that consistent weight range.
yeah, exactly. I just did a newspaper search on, newspapers from that day and that weekend, and you get, bushy hair, bushy hair, bushy hair guy, and I'm like, oh, wow. Maybe that, that's again, that's a recurring theme: bushy hair,
Mhm.
black hair, black wavy hair. So this is something a little new. This is what I decided, what I did this earlier this year, as a matter of fact, and it took me a couple months to do it. I gathered every single witness description of the killer, and we have 120 descriptions of Tippett's killer. Now you might be thinking, what? Are you saying that every witness described him 5.7 different ways? It's like, no, no. It's saying when you add it all up, when you compile everything, all the people that described what his hair looked like, all the people that describe all the descriptions of his hair, his shoes, his eye color, his height, his weight, this and all that. We have 120 descriptions of the Tippit killer. Now, it took a while, but I did that. And this is basically the
Half
debt I
of them are
did.
not Oswald.
It's
Okay. Wow. More than half are not Oswald.
yeah. So 64 descriptions are not do not point to Oswald. That would be 53%. 16 are neutral, so that's 13%, but that doesn't really count either way. That's neutral. Things like, white male, dark pants, because everyone agrees it was a white male. Everyone agrees it was dark. He had dark pants. So those are like neutral stuff. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It wouldn't count. 39, only 39 favor Oswald. That's 32.5%. And one is null, Null. So
What favors Oswald? I mean, can you give us some,
yeah, like height and weight and age and stuff like that. So I decided, let's see what AI tells us. So what I did was I put in all the descriptions, all 120 descriptions of the killer into AI, and I said, tell me based on all this what the suspect looks like, what Tippett's murderer looks like. You ready for it, Jeff?
I am.
This is what he looks like. And does that look like Oswald?
Nah, it sure doesn't, for sure. Wow.
So I can pull, you know what, for you, I think I'm going to pull up the raw data and show you. This is just for you,
Okay.
just for your audience, just for you guys. I'm going to pull up the raw data and show, and I highlighted in red and green what matches Oswald and what does not match Oswald. Okay. So,
Absolutely.
I'm going to be showing you my cards just for you guys. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. Let me know when you can see.
I cannot see it yet. Now I can.
Okay, now I hadn't planned to reveal this yet, my raw data, but I'm doing it for you guys just because you guys are special, okay? So
Okay.
again,
Well, thank you. I'm
so
glad you think we are.
so
That's good.
again, so again, if you referring back to the pie chart, red means it points away from Oswald, or it's not Oswald. Green means it points towards Oswald, and blue is neutral, okay? And blue is neutral. So these are the day one descriptions that we went over. Okay. And if we scroll down, you can see it, right?
I can.
So these are all the descriptions of the kill. This is all the ages that were given right here. Most of them do not match Oswald. You see, the
Hmm.
is what does match Oswald. The eye color. Only Tatum gave eye color. This is the hair color. Okay. This is the hair type. Notice all the red, all the red, all the
Hmm.
red.
Hmm.
Complexion, height, um, weight, um, shirt. Here's the shirt.
Yeah, this one I think is, to me, I think this is the one that would be so much more objective, and yet
This
most of
is
it,
yeah, this is the jacket. Look at all this. Look at all this red for the jacket.
right? Yeah.
Here's
I
his
mean, it's the clothing. It's
here,
those two pieces of clothing that are
this is
most.
here's his pants. Here's his shoes. Right or left-handed. That's kind of I put that in the neutral because I mean pretty much everyone said it was in his right hand except for Scoggins and Virginia Davis. So this really gives you an entire unbiased view of the data of what the witnesses saw. Do you want me to
Mhm.
touch on any particular one or scroll
Well,
through?
I mean, I think one thing which comes to mind for me is that the two areas that are talked about most often in assassination research circles are the fact that he was wearing a different color shirt, a
Let's
dark
make
shirt
sure.
versus a light shirt or a t-shirt, and then also the lack at certain points in the timing sequence, a lack of his jacket. and the
So,
color of his jacket.
so like if you want to see all the statements on the shirt, boom, right here. Here you go. Now, Ginyard, I put in yellow because if you read his testimony, he seems to be a little conditioned because none of them can identify the jacket and the shirt. And then they bring Ginyard in, and he said, "Oh yes, yes, I can identify them." And he describes Oswald, what Oswald was wearing to a T: brown shirt, white T-shirt under it. Brown shirt was open at the throat, and the white. I mean, that's exactly to a T what Oswald was wearing. So I think he's been conditioned after no one can identify the jacket that's in evidence and
Hmm.
the shirt that's in evidence. And then Ginyard, they bring Ginyard in, and he says, "Oh yeah," and he describes it to a T. I think that's a little suspicious. So that's why that's in yellow. But this is what's cool about this list. You can go to anything you ever want to know about what they said on the jacket. Boom, right there. Pants, shirt, weight, height, and what was the other one you mentioned? The shirt and what else?
Well, as you know, the color of the shirt or what he was wearing as
No.
a t-shirt or a regular shirt, and then the jacket.
Yes. So what they said on the shirt was Smith said he was wearing a white shirt. Um, Oswald was wearing a brown shirt, so that's why it's in red. Mary Brock said it was light clothing. No, Oswald was wearing a dark brown shirt, again, as we said. Virginia Davis, dark shirt. Okay, that's fine. Benavides, it was dark in color. Okay, that's fine. Barbara Davis, light color jacket. Nope. Scoggins, light shirt. Nope.
M-
Markham,
Yeah, Matt, I mean, and just so the audience is clear, you're color coding this when you compare it to what the suspect was arrested in at the Texas Theater, correct?
correct.
Right.
Correct.
So now that's the standard, right? That's the anchor. And then to the extent that anything was consistent with that, or varied with that, it gets color coded, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing actually that there's so much that is not consistent with that. Now we know that if he shed his jacket, if he had a jacket on at the Tippit murder scene and he goes up to Jefferson and around the corner and past the Texaco station, gets into the parking lot in the rear, and then drops a jacket off, he would obviously not have a jacket on at that moment, correct? And he is found at the Texas Theater without a jacket. Is that not correct? He's in a
That is
t-shirt
correct.
when yeah. So, I mean, we haven't touched upon this, and I know you probably have a little bit different view of it than I do, but uh, I look at all of this and I think it's highly suggestive of someone who might have had some qualities, not exact, of course. And I think your picture really emphasizes that point, brings that point home, but that it could very much be somebody who looks somewhat like Oswald. Now, your picture doesn't look anything like Oswald. Big, dark, black, wavy hair doesn't
Ready
look anything like
complexion. Ready. Yeah. And that. Yeah.
Right. I don't, so I would, I would agree with you that if you take all this and that's in fact what you get from a professional sketch artist, then that wouldn't be anything like what was said.
Yeah.
But
So. So.
but there
So.
are some similarities, I think. It's,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
So basic, yeah. So I do not. So based on all of this compilation that I've done, I don't think it was an Oswald lookalike
right.
because
That's your
because based on, let me pull up. Is first of all, is there anything else you wanted to look at this
No,
list?
no, no. That's really where I wanted to take this, right? Because the real question is still lingering, the bigger picture question lingering in either of these in anyone's mind when you get out of the details of all this. There was someone who made their way onto 10th and Patton and killed Tippit, and there's an Oswald in the theater, and there was somebody else in the theater too.
Yeah,
And so the question, and because it might, it really does beg the question as to whether or not there were two people who were, in the theater that were one might have been an Oswald lookalike. It begs this question: was the second person in the theater the person who killed Tippit, or one of the two people who participated in this in some way? Maybe not the one who killed Tippit, maybe the one that did kill Tippit, but one of two. Why a convergence? Why two arrests?
I think there was another. Yeah, yeah. So basic. So Can you see my image right here up on the
I
screen?
can. Yes, we can.
Basically, if you couple all the statements together, you'll get a general gist of what the killer looked like. So basically, what we're doing is we're looking for a white male. Oswald was a white male. Okay, that's fine. Age 18 to 25. Okay, that's fine. Dark eyes. Oswald did not have dark eyes. Black hair. Oswald did not have black hair. Hair type, just a little bit bushy. Hair was a little bit curly. Looked like he needed a haircut for about 2 weeks. And brushed up in front to form a pompadour, as one witness said. So that's pretty
Yeah,
important.
that's definitely not Oswald.
For those that don't know, a pompadour was those 1950s, 1960s hairstyles, kind of like John Travolta, where it's poofed up in the front. And actually, the artificial intelligence took that into consideration a little bit right here. You see that right there?
Hmm.
Kind of brushed up in front to form a pompadour. So right away, that's not Oswald. Complexion, dark and ruddy. Oswald was not dark and ruddy. Height, 5'11". Oswald was not 5'11". Weight was just a little bit heavy. Oswald was thin. White t-shirt. Oswald was wearing a dark brown shirt. Tan jacket. According to Mrs. Roberts, Oswald left the house wearing a dark jacket, not a light jacket. And that's very important because all the Tippit witnesses said the killer wore a light jacket. So if Mrs. Roberts says that Oswald's leaving the rooming house in a dark jacket, then the game is up and the jig is up. So that's a little side note. Dark pants, okay, that's fine. That's neutral. Black shoes, okay, that's fine. That's neutral. And holding a revolver. So basically, that's the reason why I do not say it was an Oswald lookalike because the descriptions of the killer just don't, and as you can see, just don't point to Oswald.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, with all due respect, this is one AI generation of your right. I mean, it might not be, there could be 10 different, versions of this depending upon what AI that you use as well too. So I don't
We
want
don't
to
even
be,
have to use
I don't,
we only have to use the AI. We can just use the descriptions in that the witness gave us. So
right.
like take this image out of the way. This will still exist based on the witness's descriptions of the killer.
Right, right. And I think, and I'm not trying to impugn the picture because I think the picture, I'm sure, is quite accurate given all the data that you fed into it. But I guess, I'm still grappling with when you get out of the details of this and you take a step back. Oswald went somewhere from the rooming house. If you rule out that he was not on the scene at 10th and Patton, then you obviously you have to conclude, I think, that he went to the theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he went to the theater, the question is what time did he get there? And I don't want to go there. I know we're going to talk about this in another episode, but and then the question is where'd the killer go? I mean, if the killer didn't go also, killer's somebody else we know. If he didn't go to the Texas Theater, then is he still on the loose? Is Tippett's killer still on the loose? And and to me, there is reasonable evidence that the person who was there at 10th and Patton may have absolutely gotten to the Texas Theater and been the second person there. I mean, I know you and I don't probably agree on that, but it just seems like that's a logical extension of what was happening that day. He was
Here
several blocks away, not very far away.
you go.
Yeah. Okay.
What
Let's
you see
see.
here.
Mrs. Slider saw the killer ditch his jacket in the alley. Okay. Two women found the jacket in the alley and hung it on a fence post. This is interesting. I never heard this part. Oh yeah, actually I guess I have heard this part. They put it on a fence post. Who's H2? Do we know who this is?
I'll tell you after you read it. Go ahead.
Okay. Informant H2 said the assailant ran westward down the alley, turned right at Crawford, ducked into the hospital area of the Abundant Life Annex, hid there for a while, and then made his way to a second floor of the annex building. By the time his pursuers had passed, the assailant climbed out of a second floor window at the southeast corner of the building, jumped to the ground. The second floor is quite low, and continued across Crawford and down the alley westward.
Yeah.
And Wow, that's pretty I'm going to take a picture of that because I want that.
Okay.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so you think that this person just got away
Yeah.
completely different than the person they arrested or took out of the theater, the other
See,
person that was taken that day.
well, it seemed to make sense because they surrounded the Abundant Life Temple. They surrounded it. They're about to barge in and get the guy, and they said, "Hey, we just got a call at the Texas Theater. Everyone leaves." And the killer's probably going, "Oh, this is the luckiest day of my life." Yeah,
I want to hear who informant H2 is.
that was apparently that was Doris Holand's other son.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. He first came forward, I think, to one of Jim Mars's meetings in the early '90s, and he gave this account.
He actually observed. I mean, it's so specific. It sounds like he actually observed this happening. It wasn't hearsay.
Apparently, yeah, this is what he reported. Yeah,
Wow. And Mrs. Slider, that's a first name. I'd never heard her before. So where does she come into the picture?
she
She
was
live right there, somewhere right next to
she
the
was
Texaco.
yeah, she was found by Bill Pulte, Professor Bill Pulte, as a matter of fact, in the 1990s. She was having her lunch in her car by the alley, and she saw this guy running like a bat out of hell, and shed his jacket. So
Wow. And put it on the fence post.
two
Wow.
women found it in the alley and hung it up on the fence post.
Isn't that in contravention to what the police report says, which says they found
Yeah,
it underneath the
all
Oldsmobile?
right. Yeah, they're yeah, exactly.
Wow. There, every time we turn around, there is some representation made in the official documentation that's just wrong.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a blatant lie,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, like, why would they, and what does it get them as as a police force to say, I found it underneath the car versus on the fence post? Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I know it sounds rather odd that someone would have taken the time to drop it on the fence post instead of hiding it, but I mean, why lie about it if that's actually where they, you know, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
right. So
So
interesting, man. I got to tell you, Matt, I didn't have to present any of this. I just had to listen, and I'm exhausted. That is an absolutely comprehensive
I've
articulation of all these witnesses and the problems associated with their testimonies and what they saw and the inconsistencies. It's really something special.
it's a lot, I know. And hold on one second. I did not touch on Mrs. Clemens, but just very quickly, there's a myth that oh, she didn't see the shooting. But right in the transcript of her raw interview with Mark Lane, she says right out, I saw some shots.
Yeah.
I saw some shots. And another myth is that she wasn't on her front porch, but she was. She told researcher Shirley Martin, quote, I got tired, came out here. Now, Mrs. Shirley Martin, first generation researcher, is interviewing Mrs. Clemens on her front porch. So she says, quote, I got tired, came out here and sat down here on the front porch. I was just sitting out here. Okay.
Yeah, so
And
so obviously she did see them. Yeah.
yeah, she did. And there's another myth that says, oh, well, the second man that Clemens saw was a guy who ran out of the house across the street named Mr. Frank Semino. But, and so, well, maybe Semino saw is the second man she saw across the street, right?
Hmm.
But that's literally impossible because Semino never said anything about seeing the gunman, much less the gunman waving to him, the gunman running away from the scene, and then he himself running away from the scene. So it's just again, this is all just desperation time trying to figure this stuff out and trying to make it work. And the last myth is that Mrs. Clemens didn't see the killer. But I can quote this. This is a powerful quote from her. She said, quote, I just tried to get out of the way because I thought he was going to shoot me. I was getting out of the way. I seen him unloading and loading his gun. I was afraid. He frightened me. To come out and see him unloading his gun and reload it, I was getting out of his way. He acted like he wanted to shoot me. I was pretty close to him. I was standing right there and I didn't want him to be shooting me. End quote. I mean, you can't fake that. That's real.
Yeah, yeah,
There's something
that is.
else.
Have you ever, it says from an audio taped interview, has that been made available?
Transcript. I have the transcript. Yes,
But
correct.
the audio tape is not. Is that still in, is she still living? Is Shirley Martin living? Boy, it'd be wonderful to be able to get that audio tape if that was what it was from.
It would. I'm not sure if the audio exists anymore, but there's a
Hmm,
transcript of
hmm,
that
hmm.
from 1964. So yeah. So that's just this is a color chart that I made of all the witnesses who gave specific colors for the jacket. You can and
I love this. Man, I
uh,
have to tell you, this is worth the price. If you're just listening on the audio podcast right now, I want you to come over to the video podcast and watch this. This is unbelievable, actually.
yeah,
Uh,
so this is a color chart that I made, and this goes to show that eyewitnesses are not always reliable. So this is a color chart I made of all the different colors that the witnesses describe the jacket. And I also made a pie chart of all the ear witnesses. Are you ready for this? I'm
mhm.
trying to say it in one breath. Three witnesses heard two shots. Two people heard two or three shots. Five people heard three shots. Two people heard three or four shots. One person heard four shots. One person heard four or five shots. One person heard five shots. One person heard six shots. Three people didn't specify, and two people couldn't tell.
And of course, we know from the forensic reports that there were four shots that were taken, unless there was one that missed, which no one is aware of. So yeah, so none of them really hardly. How many people match four? If you go back there and look back at if you pull that back up, what does it say? Four or
One
five, right? So there's only two people out of, is that, how many is that on your list there?
21 witnesses.
So of the 21, two actually got four shots correct, four or five if you just kind of actually only one got four shots exactly on. One out of 21 is less is as you say, less than 5% of the
Yeah,
total got it right. Got the total number of shots correct according to the forensic report.
yeah. So that's the end of my little presentation on the witnesses. If there's anything else you want to ask me, I
Oh, I think that's it. Honestly, Matt, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you doing this for us today and for everybody who's listening to JFK, The Enduring Secret.
anytime, anytime. I'm glad I could help.
Well, I hope you'll come back and be on a recap show because I know for a fact I've gotten a few things a little wonky in the first few episodes, and I'm not going to try to go back and change them, but we're going to address that collection of things at the end. And there are some things I think that are, controversial. All of us have a little bit different view of it, and I know your view is that there was somebody separate, as I think from Lee Harvey Oswald, who was at the Tippit murder scene. But the question is, who else was at the movie theater that day, and what happened to the person who actually did kill Tippit? I mean, those are still questions that remain, I think, for all of us as we're going through the episodes. So, Matt, you are awesome, and
Yeah.
really, really, just it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. So, thank you again for coming on.
Hey, thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you again for listening today to another episode of JFK, The Enduring Secret interview series. Please join us on a regular basis, and you'll find our podcast at your favorite podcast outlet, as well as our YouTube channel on YouTube. And that's JFK, The Enduring Secret.